So the 11th NLP task is going to be the table question answering. Now this is going to be very important. The Google is going to introduce their model into Google Sheets, and also Microsoft is going to introduce their own model into Microsoft Excel. So they are making it easier to find the insights from tabular data easy. Okay. So here we have a pipeline and the task is table question answering. Okay. Even in fact, this model is coming from Google. Okay. All right. So first let's create some tabular data. So here we are creating a Pandas data frame with 2 columns, right? A very simple data frame. The actors and the number of movies they acted in. Okay. And then we can ask a bunch of questions. Okay. So here we have a query. How many movies does Leonardo DiCaprio have? Okay. So we are calling the model, the table question and answering, and it takes 2 arguments. So one is the actual table and the second one is the query. Okay. So it has written 53, which is correct. All right. And then we ask another question, who has the highest movies? Okay. So from this table, it is Brad Pitt and again answered correctly. But this is not to say that this model is going to answer all the questions correctly. They still make a lot of mistakes, but a lot of research is happening in this area. And those products are going to be embedded into the Google Sheets and Microsoft Excel in the near future. Okay. Just one more example. Here we have another data frame with 4 columns. Okay. It's this GitHub repository, the stars, the contributors, and the programming language. Okay. Then again, we ask the query, how many stars does the transformers repository has? So this transformers, it is referring to Hugging Face. Okay. By now it has some 65,000, I guess. This is some old data. All right. So I guess it has replied this sum greater than, I'm not sure why it said. Probably it's thinking we are asking for some sum, but it's close. Okay. I mean, yeah. And then which programming language is more common, right? So from this column, which are Python is more common. So it's not just picking up the value from one cell. It's able to understand the rows and columns. For example, in order to ask this question, it need to understand the value here, and the multiple values here. Yeah. All right. So it's Python, and it also give the cell the coordinates. Okay. The row and column, right? So the row index start from 0 and the column index also start from 0, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, aggregator none. Okay, so here it took the aggregator as sum. Even though we are not asking any sum related question, it took the aggregator as sum and it answered in this format, right? So as I said, it's not going to answer all the questions correctly. And the next one, the simple text to text question answering. Okay, so here is our model, and then this takes 2 arguments, right? One is the context or the document, and the second one is the question itself. So here we supply the question, where do I live? And the context or the document is, my name is Mau and I live in Istanbul. Okay. So it said, where do I live? It has answered this correctly. And also the confidence score is high. And it also saying where the answer starts. So it starts at character 31 and ends at 39. Now again, these questions are too trivial, so we are not going to use some AI model to get answer such trivial questions. But again, imagine we have a very big document. We want to find some specific answer. We don't want to go through the whole document. In such scenarios, we'll use these models. Okay. Now another simple question, we are simply asking the name. It has answered correctly, but here is an example where it has answered incorrectly. Okay, so here we are asking my brother's name. I mean, it's not here, but it is still saying it is Merv, right? So this is an incorrect answer. With the latest models, what we can say is, if you don't find the answer, reply unknown, right? So when we do that, those latest models, they'll reply unknown instead of trying to find some answer from the document. Okay. And the final task we are going to discuss today, it's this conversation or this AI chatbot, right? So the task is conversational. So here we got the chatbot. There are two different ways or couple of ways we can use the chatbots. So first, here we have provided some prompts or the input. So let's say conversation one, somebody asking, hey, somebody saying, going to the movie tonight, any suggestions? And the second person saying, what is the last book you have read? Now to the chatbot, we have provided these two inputs. Now it's going to generate some conversation based on these two inputs. Okay. So now again, these models, I mean, they are regularly being updated, and some parameters become mandatory, some become depreciated. So it's that information, but the actual response is here. Okay. So it creates some ID for each conversation. Then the user asked, going to movie tonight, any suggestion? And the bot replied, the Big Lebowski, right? And then the next conversation, the user asked, what is the last book you read? And again, the bot replied, the last question, right? We can do it differently. So here we are adding users, right? So for example, here again, from the conversation, the same question, we have added this to chatbot, and the chatbot has replied. Okay, it has replied the same name, and then we can add one more user, right? So like this, we can build the conversation. So we can have multiple users as well in some models. Okay, so have added one more user, and the user said, is it an action movie? Okay, so we are building upon the conversation from here. So again, it said it's a comedy. Okay, is it an action movie? It simply replied, it's a comedy. All right, that's it for today. Again, quick recap. So we looked at a very important NLP task, which is this table question answering. So provided a table, we can ask questions, and it will try to answer the questions by understanding the tables. Okay, so it's not just picking up the cell values. It's also doing some mathematical operations. For example, in this case, even though it misunderstood the question, it understood as it needs to do some aggregation, and that is sum, and it replied in this format. Okay. And then we looked at some language based question answering models. So we provide some text or document, and then we ask questions. Okay. There are more quite advanced models. When they don't know the answer, we can explicitly state that reply unknown, or whatever you want, if it can't find the answer, right? And finally, we looked at the conversation. I mean, we are all already familiar with chatbots. So here we have two users, and we have generated some conversation based on it. Whereas here we are building up the conversation by adding the users. Okay. That's all for today. Thank you very much.